There is a genocide, an ethnic cleansing, and a humanitarian crisis that is so bad in Tigray that 600,000 civilians have been killed, 70,000 refugees are in Sudan, 99% of ambulances have been stolen, taken to Eritrea, or destroyed, 75% of state and private universities have been looted and damaged beyond repair, 80% of health facilities have been looted, vandalized, or destroyed, and 2.2 million plus people are internally displaced. And on top of this, Tigray has been under a de facto blockade for the last 2 years with little to no access to cash, fuel, telecommunications, or electricity. This limits humanitarian assistance and the delivery of essential supplies to more than 20 million people in Ethiopia, including 5.2 million people in Tigray. Now, this all started on November 4th, 2020, when Ethiopia's prime minister mobilized the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, the Eritrean Defense Forces, and the Amhara Special Forces to launch a war against the over 7 million people of the region of Tigray. Now, despite the Ethiopian regime's initial assertions that this is a domestic law and order operation directed against a Tigrayan political entity, the ongoing brutal involvement of Eritrean government and troops, the reported use of armed drones, the atrocious human rights abuses, and escalating humanitarian catastrophe in Tigray clearly shows that this is an all-out war against the people of Tigray. The war has unleashed innumerable atrocities that have devastated Tigray, becoming the world's deadliest war, destabilizing Ethiopia and undermining peace and security in the Horn of Africa. There have been verified reports of widespread civilian massacres, extrajudicial executions, sexual and gender-based violence, man-made famine, looting, destruction of healthcare facilities, and forced displacement of millions of Tigrayans. Now, as I've researched what's going on in Tigray, it seems like what's needed the most and the quickest is humanitarian aid. This can't happen because of the blockade, so here is something you can do. If you go to the first link in my link tree, it will take you to this page. It is a message that urges the Prime Minister of Ethiopia to allow humanitarian aid to Tigray. Along with this, I'm going to make a separate video of other things you can do, including donations and where to donate. I want to ensure that any money donated ends up in the right hands, and I haven't had a chance to completely vet and research organizations. However, if you know of any, or you know of any creators talking about them, please let me know in the comments.
On November 4th of 2020, the Ethiopian federal government had declared war on Tigray's regional government. Ever since the war was declared, the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had enforced a telecommunication shutdown on the entire region of Tigray. He asserted that this operation would only last 3 to 5 days and would not harm any civilians. It has now been over 100 days since the war was declared, and at least 50,000 people have been reported dead. These deaths were due to bombardments, massacres, and genocidal attacks at the hands of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, Eritrean forces, and the Amhara militia. There have also been hundreds, if not thousands, of women and children that are victims of rape, gang rape, molestation, and sexual violence by these same troops. Over 60,000 refugees have fled to Sudan to escape the war crimes and genocide. Those who were unable to leave are part of the 2.2 million people that are internally displaced, and around 4.5 million people are at risk of starvation. Please share this with everyone you know.
If you care about African Black lives, then I urge you to keep watching this video, because I guarantee that what I'm about to tell you, you do not know about. Ethiopia's forgotten war, which resulted in the Tigray genocide, is said to be one of the deadliest wars of the 21st century, with over 500,000 innocent civilian deaths.
The fighting followed years of growing tensions between the Ethiopian federal government, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and leaders of Tigray's ruling political party. Government forces were soon joined by security forces from the Amhara region, which neighbors Tigray, as well as soldiers from the country of Eritrea.
For more than 2 years, a largely invisible campaign of ethnic cleansing has played out in the Tigray region. No one, including older people, women, or children, has been spared.
We know it was coming. People started blaming every Tigrayan as a criminal, as a terrorist. These are preconditions to attack people. When the war started, we were reporting about issues in Tigray. Anyone who wants to represent the voice of Tigray was under attack. We knew that they are coming after us.
During the Tigray genocide, in 2 years, more than 120,000 women were raped. And even now, a year after the peace agreement, there are still thousands of women who are experiencing this. One of the hardest things for me to process at this time is that not only were the women raped, medics also reported removing nails, rocks, and pieces of plastic from inside the bodies of the victims. I honestly do not know what kind of dystopian world we're living in where things like this can happen, but oh my god. Please raise awareness about what's happening in Tigray. We've literally been fighting relentlessly for the past 2 years, and we have lost more than 500,000 people. We're a population of only 6 million people, and all of us have lost so much because of this genocide. I'm aware that global awareness is increasing, and this is a great opportunity for our voices to be amplified and for our voices to be heard. Even using the hashtag Tigray Genocide honestly will help bring so much awareness. We are not free until all of us are free, so let us continue fighting the good fight. It can be so exhausting at times, but it will all be worth it at the end.
The Tigray people are dying. In fact, they are under a famine that is worse than ever before. After the Silent War, which has led to a genocide that has killed over 600,000 Tigrayans and left millions displaced, food security was never ensured in Tigray. I have even lost family members due to the war. The famine is mainly caused by drought and the effects of the late war. It could even be compared to the Great Famine, which has cost the lives of millions of Ethiopians. In fact, 5.2 million Tigrayans are in need of emergency aid, while 2.3 million Tigrayan children are in need of humanitarian care. More people are dying every day, and a lot of us are not even aware of this. Plus, nobody deserves to deal with famine after witnessing a horrible war. So please spread awareness and share this video. Thank you for watching.
There is another genocide going on the Tigray people in Ethiopia. Basically, to give you a backstory, the Tigray people, the Ethiopian people, and the Eritrean people have had a long-standing conflict with each other for a long time ago. And back in 2020, the Ethiopian government and the Eritrean forces came together to basically wipe out and unalive so many of the Tigray people. And they launched this slaughter campaign and unalived more than 600,000 people of the Tigray people, unalived them. And 2.2 million of these people have been displaced all around. And the women have been raped, assaulted, children have been assaulted. It's a bloodshed. It's been a massacre for these people, and they have not rested. So in 2020, they came to an agreement. The two Ethiopians and the Tigray people. There was a document signed that they would come to an agreement. No more conflict. No more killing. No more of this genocide. But the Ethiopian government broke that truce, and they have continued to brutalize these people on and on and on and on again. Al Jazeera, it has been the only type of news publication that has covered this genocide, and basically they are calling it crimes against humanity. That the Ethiopian government, despite truce, has continued to continue this genocide on the Tigray region on these people, and their allies is the Eritrean government, and they are violating human rights basically. Mohammed Chandi is the chair of the International Commission of Human Rights, and he says, while the signing of the agreement may have mostly silenced the guns, it has not resolved the conflict in north of the country, in particular in Tigray, nor has it brought about any comprehensive peace. So the Ethiopian government is still going up against everybody's back and unaliving these innocent people. They have literally bombed their ambulances, any type of help that these people need, they have taken it away from them. It's given very much Israel and Palestine, right? So these people are being massacred. Nobody's really giving them that attention and coverage. So just wanted to bring that onto this page as well. And if you guys know more information about this and where I can learn more and talk about it more, let me know. But it's good to know about what all the other atrocities going on in the world. This is sad and really, really crazy that these people are just, they did nothing to you. Why do you go ahead and kill innocent people, displace millions of people? It's crazy.
If you care about African Black lives, please keep watching because I guarantee that what I'm about to tell you, you did not know. And if you do know, then I really, really hope that you're using your knowledge to spread awareness because this is absolutely disturbing. Imagine the government of your country bombing a kindergarten that killed at least 7 children. And that kindergarten is located in a city where your extended family is living in. And mind you, you have not been in contact with them for the past 2 years, so you don't know who's dead and you don't know who's still alive. What if I told you that this was my situation? And not only mine, but also the rest of the Tigrayan diaspora. The government of Ethiopia has bombed a kindergarten in the capital city of Tigray, which is the region in northernmost Ethiopia. And this was not something that happened months ago. This literally happened on Friday, August 26, 2022. And this was not the first time that the Ethiopian government had bombed Tigray. They have bombed hospitals all over Tigray, and they have also had Ethiopian soldiers as well as Eritrean soldiers vandalize and loot hospitals of their resources. So it has gotten so bad to the point where doctors and nurses are literally reusing their gloves. In fact, there's no working hospitals in Tigray, which I might make a video for another day. They have also bombed churches, mosques, homes, factories, and farms. And not only have my people been dying from bombs, but they've also been dying from a man-made famine due to the Ethiopian government purposely blocking food aid into the region. They're also being targeted and killed by Ethiopian and Eritrean militia. And a lot of civilians have been dying in sickness and disease due to lack of healthcare. And it has been estimated that 500,000 people have died since the war between the Ethiopian government and Tigray has began, which was in 2020. And this is not just a war, this is genocide. And you might be wondering how you can help. Well, call your representatives. Get them to pass the HR 6600 bill. And if you don't know what HR 6600 is, just pause and read the summary. When you click the link on my bio, there's going to be a script for you to read off of when you're calling your representative. So this is something that you can do in addition to spreading awareness on social media. And we know that the media will always be terrible at spreading awareness about what's happening to African Black people. So please share this video, please spread awareness, and do your research. Tigray is being deliberately and strategically starved by the Ethiopian government. Hunger is being weaponized and starvation is being used as a method of war. Over 5.2 million people, which is 91% of Tigray's population, are in need of emergency food assistance, and over 900,000 Tigrayans are currently in a man-made famine. Ethiopian and Eritrean troops along with Amhara militia have prevented civilians from farming, have burned crops, burned homes and villages, have blocked roads, destroyed bridges used as supply routes for aid, and have ethnically cleansed communities during the Tigray genocide. During the first 2 weeks of war, banks were closed and citizens were unable to purchase anything. When banks temporarily reopened, food prices skyrocketed, which left many people unable to afford basic food items. Food items have then begun to run short, which resulted in local Tigrayan civilians begging for food and rationing. Most civilians would receive 1 meal per day if they were lucky. Let's also not forget about the Tigrayan mothers that are unable to produce enough breast milk for their children. Thousands of children in Tigray are malnourished partially because of this. Please share and spread awareness.
We have now reached 200 days into the state-led genocidal war occurring in Tigray, northern part of Ethiopia. The Ethiopian government designed this war to take place in the dark by imposing communication blackout, by impeding humanitarian access, by restricting media access, and preventing civilians from seeking safety. By now, more than 5.2 million people need emergency food, more than 10,000 women and girls have been raped, more than 2.2 million people have been internally displaced, more than 70,000 civilians have been killed, and 75% of state and private universities have been destroyed, and 80% of facilities have been looted and destroyed. Yet, global leaders and experts are failing to take concrete and tactical action to end the Tigray genocide. Expressing concerns without action allows the genocide to continue. Concerns alone do not prevent senseless killing, rape, and starvation. We are requesting global leaders and international community to call on UN Security Council to take action.
What a story, you only know the half.
Welcome to Amna Tigray TikTok. Here is a little overview about Amna. Amna Tigray was founded by a collective of international Tigrayans in the US, Canada, Australia, and Europe as a response to the Tigray crisis. Our purpose is to effectively fight injustice as well as advocate for human rights, peace, and economic development in the Tigray region by amplifying the voices of those who live there. Right now, we are focused on advocating to end the Tigray war and call for unrestricted humanitarian aid access. Amna means our large tree in Tigrinya. Is a tree with a bunch of branches that keeps on growing. This signifies that despite adversity, Tigray will continue to flourish to reach new heights. Join our global movement of educated advocacy and help us spread awareness about what is going on in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. Probably wondering, who are the Tigrayan people and where even is Tigray? Tigray is located in the northernmost region of Ethiopia, known for its mountainous terrains that have protected the people from invaders. Capital city is Mekelle. Population ranges from 7 to 10 million. Tigrinya is the official language and the most spoken. Tigray is known to be the birthplace of Ethiopian civilization. History goes as far back as the Da'amat kingdom. Then followed the Aksumite Empire, which was one of the foremost powerful kingdoms in the entire world. Later in the 19th century, modern-day Ethiopia fought against the invading Italians and won under the leadership of Tigrayan generals and soldiers who knew the mountains very well. 85% of Tigrayans practice Orthodox Christianity. It is believed that one of the three wise kings was an Aksumite king. It's also where the Ark of Covenants is located. About 5% of Tigrayans are Muslim. Home to Al-Nagashi, first Muslim settlement in Africa and believed to be one of the first mosques. Women's History Month, so let's talk about what's happening to women and girls in Tigray. Genocidal war in Tigray is disproportionately affecting women and girls as they face horrific sexual and gender-based violence. Ethiopian and Eritrean troops, as well as the Amhara militia, have weaponized rape against women and girls in order to psychologically and physically terrorize them. Hospitals and aid agencies operating out of Tigray estimate that thousands of women have been raped, gang raped, molested, and sexually violated. Doctors in Sudan treating Tigrayan refugee women and girls have recounted disturbing stories from survivors. Most of these women have confessed to being forced to choose between rape or death, some even forced in exchange for basic commodities. Women and girls as young as 8 are being gang raped. Some sexually enslaved in camps by soldiers for weeks. Others who are losing their limbs fighting off rapists. Tagaru women's bodies are not a war zone.
Alright, let's talk about Weyane. Weyane is a colloquial Tigrinya word for rebellion or revolution, particularly against marginalization and subjugation. Before we get into demonstrations by Tigrayans under the banner of Weyane, it is important to note that Weyane is not a political party. It is an ideology accepted by most, if not all, Tigrayans to resist and revolt against marginalization and subjugation. The first Weyane rebellion took place as a result of systematic economic marginalization of Tigrayans and attempts by the ruling administration to centralize power. The first Weyane revolutionaries believed in allowing Tigray to self-govern under the Ethiopian state. In order to stop this uprising, then Emperor Haile Selassie utilized the UK Royal Air Force to bomb heavily populated cities in Tigray. In October of 1943, the UK Air Force dropped 30 bombs in Hintalo, 32 bombs in Korepta, and 54 bombs in Magale. While these aerial bombardments did effectively repress the first Weyane uprising, it did not destroy the ideology, which leads us to the second Weyane rebellion. Fast forwarding to the mid-1970s, a military coup overthrew the Emperor Haile Selassie, and a military junta known as Derg took reign of Ethiopia. The Derg viewed Ethiopia as a monolithic society and declared that any ethno-nationalist grievance or demand for self-determination is contrary to Ethiopia's unity and interests. This led to many anti-government Tigrayan groups to form, but ultimately one succeeded, known as the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF. The TPLF officially launched a revolt against the Derg on February 18, 1975. Over the course of the armed struggle, millions of Tigrayans suffered as the Derg attempted time and time again to quash the uprising by collectively punishing the civilian population. One example being the deliberate blocking of humanitarian aid to the people of Tigray, causing the Great Famine of 1985, where estimated 1.2 million people died, most of which being Tigrayan. On May 28, 1991, the TPLF, along with other armed groups, overthrew the Derg regime. Later in that same year, the TPLF, along with different coalitions from other ethnic groups in Ethiopia, formed the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, or EPRDF. The EPRDF set out to end centuries of domination of marginalized and minority groups in Ethiopia by establishing a multinational federal system. Although the party succeeded in developing the country's economy, it did not succeed in embedding a democratic form of governance, as there was suppression of free press and opposition groups. While the party failed to bring about the reforms it sought out when it first formed, the current Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has hijacked the original ambitions of EPRDF in order to centralize power through his own hegemonic political agenda. In his attempt to do so, he has subjected the people of Tigray to a gross amount of atrocities, including weaponizing rape, hunger, and humanitarian aid, among other ungodly atrocities, all of which has set the stage for this third Wayana uprising. To learn more about the current plight of Tigrayans, follow Omna Tigray on all social media accounts and visit omnatigray.org in order to find more ways to help. Let's talk about independent investigations for Tigray. In November 2021, the United Nations Human Rights Office and Ethiopian Human Rights Commission published a flawed report in regard to their joint investigations on atrocities committed in Tigray. Prior to the release of the report, many Tigrayans and allies continuously condemned the UN's decision to involve the state-funded Ethiopian Human Rights Commission and its state-appointed commissioner Daniel Bekele into the investigations, as Ethiopia was one of the primary perpetrators of the atrocities. The inclusion of the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission and Daniel Bekele completely contradict the fundamental understanding of independence and impartiality, as they are neither independent nor impartial, as they have been complicit in covering up and minimizing the atrocities in Tigray. According to an article by AP News, people close to the investigation assert that Daniel Bekele underplayed allegations of fighters for the Amhara region and instead pressed to highlight abuses that Tigrayan fighters were accused of. This was clear in the report, as there is little mention of the atrocities committed by Amhara forces, which contradict many stories from victims covered in credible media outlets. In addition to downplaying war crimes and crimes against humanity, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission is also biased, as they have selectively highlighted cases to report on and condemn throughout the war on Tigray. Despite tangible evidence from photos, videos, and testimonies, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission chose not to investigate massacres such as the Mahibra Dego massacre, which was captured on video and identified Ethiopian federal forces carrying out summary executions on Tigrayan civilians. This is a consistent pattern with the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, where human rights violations that occur throughout the country on Tigrayans, Oromos, Kamans, and other ethnic groups are selectively investigated or condemned. This pattern is no accident, as these trends follow in line and support the government's narrative. An example of which was how the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission waited until Abiy Ahmed confessed to Eritrean forces fighting alongside his federal forces to release the report on the Aksum massacre, where Eritrean forces massacred hundreds of civilians in the city of Aksum. The preliminary report of the Aksum massacre came out 4 months after the massacre had actually occurred, and exactly 1 day after Abiy Ahmed admitted to Eritrean forces being in Tigray. In addition to all that, according to Article 55 of the Ethiopian Constitution, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission is accountable to the House of People's Representatives. And since Tigrayans are without representation in the current parliament, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission in its current state is not accountable to Tigrayans, and Tigrayans have no institutional means to bring their grievances to the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. Tigrayans continue to call for a UN-led independent investigation into past and ongoing war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide in Tigray. To achieve this, we are requesting that the United Nations Human Rights Council hold a special session to address the human rights abuses in Tigray and across Ethiopia and establish a robust investigative mechanism in that context. Listed before you are recommendations. Please join us in our call for the United Nations Human Rights Council to hold a special session so that justice can be achieved for all victims. And follow Omna Tigray on all platforms in order to stay connected and find more ways to help.
Here are some ways you can get involved to help us end Tigray genocide. Reach out to your elected officials by calling, writing letters, and signing petitions. Already drafted petitions can be found at omnatigray.org or sjtethiopia.org. Raise awareness by participating in action-oriented campaigns about the war and genocide in Tigray. All present and past campaigns can be found on Omna's website. Attend and amplify local protests. For updates on protests happening in the United States, check out Tagaru Events on Instagram and Omna Tigray's newsletter. Make sure you stay informed and amplify information by visiting our website and all of our social media pages. You can also participate in individual outreach by raising awareness and educating your friends and family. To add on to that, you can also use your own social media platforms to educate others about the war and genocide in Tigray. And even volunteer your times and skills to Tigrayan-led organizations like Amna Tigray that are dedicated to ending Tigray genocide. Lastly, donate to organizations that are currently working in Tigray to deliver life-saving aid like food, water, medicine, and other emergency humanitarian assistance to millions of civilians. You can find organizations to donate to at Amna's website, amnatigray.org. By doing at least one of these things, you are helping save lives in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. They need your voice, so please help us spread awareness.
If you have recently learned about the Tigray War, you probably noticed there aren't a lot of sources or news reports on it, especially new, up-to-date ones. This is because the Ethiopian government is actively threatening journalists who talk about Tigrayan genocide and violently suppressing activists and protests against their treatment. Ethiopian journalist Teshaker Sig was covering a peaceful rally live on September 7, 2023, when security forces surrounded, assaulted, and illegally detained Sigab. He was then left without access to urgent medical treatment after sustaining many injuries. Sigab is one of many the Ethiopian government has been targeting media, journalists, and activists for years as a way to suppress the voices of Tigray people. #Change in Tigray.
When you know, you know. When you know, you know.
Here's why you should care about Tigray, Ethiopia. Tigray is one of the 12 regions in Ethiopia and it sits in the northernmost part of the country. The region is known to export things like coffee, cotton, and salt. It is also known to be rich in precious stones like gold and sapphires. And the Tigrayan people speak the language known as Tigrinya. Please correct me if I didn't pronounce that properly. Now, unfortunately, there have not been many positive things documented about the people of Tigray, especially following the outbreak of the war in 2020 between the TPLF, which is the ruling political party of the Tigray region, against Abiy Ahmed, the prime minister who who still commands the Ethiopian military. During the war, Abiy Ahmed sought the help of Amhara forces, and Amhara is a neighboring region of Tigray. During that time, he also sought the help of Eritrean forces. This war that lasted from 2020 to 2022, and mostly in the Tigrayan region, claimed the lives of an estimate of 600,000 people. It is also responsible for the raping of women, starvation of civilians, and destruction of places like schools, medical facilities, and places of worship. And at some point, the war got so bad that the people of Tigray were shut out from the rest of the world with no means to communicate with their families in diaspora. Now, even though it has been over a year since the peace agreement was signed between all parties involved in the war, the people of Tigray are facing an ethnic cleansing. Even now, levels of starvation and famine in the country are still very high, communication is still very low, and there is also concerns of drought. Many people are speculating that some of the Eritrean military is still residing in Tigray, continuing to inflict such horrific crimes against humanity. Even though the war to keep or regain power ended a year ago, the country is still in major unrest. We need to protect the people of Tigray because they have been speaking out for so long and they have not gotten aid. Even now, aid is difficult to get into the country. Protect Tigray.
Sorry.
12 years her son killed in front of her. She crying when she remember him, her child, she crying. She is not stable.
It's been 3 years since the war in Tigray started, and 1 year since the peace agreement was signed and the war officially ended. However, we have not gotten any form of justice, and the people that did this to us have not been held accountable. There are many reports that have come out in the past few months that highlight that there are still war crimes and crimes against humanity being committed against innocent Tigrayans, even despite the peace agreement that was signed a year ago. There are still over 1.5 million Tigrayans who have been internally displaced, who have been forced to reside in schools and in tents. Because many schools are being used by people that have been displaced, school has not started for many students, even despite the peace agreement. Most of North and West Tigray are also still occupied by Eritrean troops and Amhara militia groups, both of which have been accused of committing numerous war crimes against Tigrayans even despite the peace agreement. Researchers have also verified that many Tigrayans are dying in Tigray as a result of hunger even despite the peace agreement. There have also been reports that even months after the peace deal, there are many Tigrayan prisoners of war, both fighters and innocent civilians, that are still behind bars. I am from Tigray, and the past 3 years have honestly felt like an outer-body experience. It is one thing to process that human beings can act and do such things, and another to process that they can also get away with it. It pains me to request attention for what's happening in Tigray, as many other nations are also experiencing very dreadful circumstances. However, I urge you to not forget the suffering of my people. Tigrayans have endured so much in silence the past 3 years and are still caught in a genocide. Please, even the smallest actions, such as mentioning the Tigray genocide in conversations and using the hashtag Tigray genocide, can make a huge difference in spreading awareness. Remember, none of us are free until we're all free, so let's use our voices to advocate for people who are not able to advocate for themselves.
Hey, are you even paying attention to me right now?
This is a call to action for anybody who cares about the well-being of the people in Tigray. Whenever you see false statements like this, falsely claiming that the war has ended, you need to correct it immediately. Statements like these are referring to the peace agreement that was signed in November 2022 that was prematurely celebrated but never actually fully implemented. While the guns between Tigrayan forces and Ethiopian federal forces may have been silenced, the genocide is far from over. In addition to conventional warfare, the Ethiopian federal government used starvation and depriving the people of medicine as tools of war. And here is an article from the AP Press from September 2023 showing that researchers say that they verified 1,329 deaths from hunger in Tigray since the ceasefire. So these are only verified deaths. And then below it says that they found that hunger is now the main cause of death in Tigray, accounting for more than 68% of deaths investigated by the researchers. So in addition to that, although Ethiopian federal forces may not be on the ground physically shooting and committing genocide, you have their allies such as the Eritrean troops and forces from Amhara region continuing the genocidal agenda and ethnic cleansing of the people in Tigray. Nearly 40% of Tigray continues to be controlled by the invading forces. We know allowing misinformation to go uncorrected enables the silent continuation of genocide. So again, this is a call to action to stand against it and continue to correct false narratives every single time you see or hear it.
Can't see a damn thing if it ain't. Before I explain, I want to clear up something. So I said that the Ethiopian government had waged war on the Tigray region of Ethiopia. But to be more specific, they waged war on Tigray's regional government, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, also known as the TPLF. According to the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, he said that the TPLF had attacked the Northern Command. So this is what led the Ethiopian government to officially declare war on TPLF. But that wasn't the only reason why this war started. That was just the breaking point. There was actually a series of events that led up to this war that I can't explain in under 60 seconds. So I'm just going to put a link in the comments to an Instagram thread that will explain everything for you. Even though this war was initially declared on TPLF, this war is also against the people. Ethiopian and Eritrean troops are literally going out of their way to target innocent Tigrayan civilians. They have been looting them, they have been killing them, they have been raping them, they have been bombing schools, churches, mosques. Like, you can't justify these things. At this point, it's not even about politics anymore, this is about the people. This is who we're fighting for. And I also wanted to mention that when you say I stand with Tigray, you are standing with the people of Tigray. Okay, this is a part 2 for allies who stands with Tigray. So I mentioned that the regional government of Tigray is the Tigray People's Liberation Front, also known as the TPLF. And to give some context about TPLF, they were the dominant party of the EPRDF coalition that led Ethiopia for about 27 years. They did not have a good reputation for majority of Ethiopia. They have committed crimes against other ethnic groups in Ethiopia, and some people in my comments even stated that they have lost family members because of them. And as someone who stands with humanity first, I do hold them accountable for that. But keep in mind that TPLF is just a political party. Not everyone who's a part of TPLF is Tigrayan, so they don't truly represent the people of of Tigray. Even the Ethiopian Prime Minister used to work with TPLF in the past, but no one wants to talk about that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people, specifically Ethiopians, who see TPLF and the people of Tigray as the same. So they actually enjoy seeing Tigrayan people suffer. Their hatred for this political party is so much to the point where they have lost their humanity. And this is a prime example of what I mean. I honestly don't care if people hate TPLF or dislike them, but using TPLF as an excuse to not stand with humanity is not right.
The humanitarian crisis in Tigray is more than Ukraine, without any exaggeration. Maybe the reason is the color of the skin of the people in Tigray. I haven't heard in the last few months, several months now, even a head of state talking about the Tigray condition anywhere. Why? I think we know. Nowhere on earth 6 million people are sealed off. Nowhere. From basic services, from their own money, from telecom, from food, from medicine. This is the worst disaster on earth as we speak.
And now you won't let go.
Around the same time as the United States presidential elections, the Ethiopian government had waged war on the Tigray region of Ethiopia. Since the war started, the Ethiopian government had cut off all telecommunication lines, so myself, as well as the rest of the Tigrayan diaspora, could not contact their families since they live in that region. The Ethiopian government has also been sending bombs all over Tigray. They have been bombing schools, mosques, churches, civilians in general, and they have also been getting help from the Eritrean government as well as the United Arab Emirates. This led to over 60,000 refugees fleeing to Sudan by foot. And to make matters worse, the Ethiopian government has purposely blocked humanitarian aid, food, water, electricity, pretty much everything. And there are currently over 4.5 million Tigrayans that are starving right now. And to add on to that, there are Ethiopian and Eritrean troops that are raping women, that are killing children, that are separating families. And this has been going on for over 80 days, and literally no one's talking about it. I would really appreciate it if you guys can get the hashtags Tigray Genocide and Stop War on Tigray trending, please.
A lot of people have asked why the Tigray conflict isn't talked about more. I believe there are many reasons as to why the Tigray conflict didn't get as much coverage. One of the main reasons is the lack of access. The Ethiopian government had severely restricted media and aid access to Tigray. This has made it extremely difficult for journalists and humanitarians to reach the region and report on its true crisis. Another reason is the lack of care towards African lives. Unfortunately, African conflicts do not capture the world's attention to the same degree other regions do. Despite the Tigray War being named the deadliest conflict of the 21st century due to its high death toll, many people still aren't aware it even exists. Another reason is the spread of the disinformation campaigns. There have been efforts to spread disinformation and downplay the atrocities of the Tigray War. This obscures the reality surrounding the crimes committed. Thank you so much for watching.
Okay, if your parents are immigrants and you have family living in developing countries located in Africa, the Middle East, South America, Asia, whatever, please listen to this. And even if you don't, please listen to this for perspective. So say if your country's government had waged war on your parents' hometown. So this is a place where all your extended family lives, all your loved ones, your friends, your cousins, your aunties, your uncles, everyone, right? And your country's government had cut off all telecommunication lines, so you're not able to contact them. And every day you're hearing news that your family's hometown is getting bombed by your country's government, and you're continuously hearing people getting raped, getting killed, getting slaughtered, getting tortured, getting kidnapped. And in the midst of all of this, you don't even know if your family's alive. You don't know if they're okay. Because why? You can't contact them, right? This is exactly what the Tigrayan diaspora is going through. There's a war going on in the Tigray region of Ethiopia, and no one is talking about it. Please look at my last video for more information. If you are not Tigrayan but you are using your platform to speak up for Tigray, this message is for you. Be prepared to get messages or comments accusing you of misinformation, false news, propaganda, Those type of messages are from people who support this war and who wants the pain and suffering of innocent Tigrayan people to continue. Honestly, they have this disgusting revenge mentality against the whole Tigray region because of the crimes of a Tigrayan political party. So they're essentially putting politics over people. The things that I said that the Ethiopian government is doing against the people of Tigray is true. And you don't even have to take my word for it. There's articles by trusted sources like the New York Times, Washington Post, Reuters, and many more, and you can read for yourself about what's happening. There's pictures, there's videos, there are refugee testimonies, there are people who were lucky enough to contact their family in Tigray, and their family members can testify what's actually happening. And even for me, I was fortunate enough to contact my family in Tigray, and what they're telling me is completely different than what the Ethiopian Prime Minister is telling the media. Because there's a lot of political tensions, they're trying so hard to silence Tigray, which is why it is so important to spread awareness. So please don't let those messages intimidate you. I'm gonna make a part 2.
It's so sweet.
ኣብ ገዛ ውሽጢ መፅኦም ቀቲሎሞ ጎቲቶም ወሲዶም ኣብ ደገ ሓወ ቃፂሎሞ ሬሳ ርኢ ቀኒና ምን ገብር ኣይከኣልኩን በይኒ ኮይነ ንዑ ምስ ቀተልዎ ከዓ ንዓይነ ንዓመፁኒ 3-4 ኮይኖም ዓሚፆም ዝነበረን ንብረት ብምሉእ ወሲዶሞ 2-3 ሰብኣይን ሓንቲ ሰበይቲ ምግሳስ ማለት ብጣዕሚ ሕማቕ እዩ دعم وانجلو حاجة هذا لا علامات بمولو قلنا يرأينا ولعنا بغادي تدرينا.
Thank you for asking. What would really be helpful is people spread the word and spread awareness. I haven't seen many people talk about this. Sign this petition. Give to this relief fund through global giving. There's another petition. All of these will be in my bio. You can donate to the Children's Relief Fund. You can also donate to rescue.org. You can use this prompt to send an email to the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, to let him know the Tigray people deserve humanitarian aid. Please share and boost this video also to spread awareness. I don't like to be the type of person to compare causes, but it did bother me how people were quick to come for Black Lives Matter, quick to come for Black people, saying we didn't do anything for Palestine. But are these same people speaking up when things happen in African countries? Do what you can and pray for them as well.
If you have the means to donate and you want to help the ongoing genocide in Tigray, keep watching. Here are 2 ongoing charities held by Amna Tigray. Please help them reach their goal. Here is the link to their website to learn more. Also link in bio.
Okay, so when you click the link on my bio, there's an organized Google Doc of all the links you could find to petitions, GoFundMes, articles for you to educate yourself with, and so much more, so check it out. You guys should follow Amna Tigray on Instagram. They actually educate you on what you're advocating for with credible sources. Peace in Tigray is also a really good Instagram page to follow. And if you want to show your solidarity with Tigray, then you can change your profile picture to yellow.
Looking at my ganga.
We are currently in Fatsi, a town in Tigray in the northern part of Ethiopia, where some 2,000 families are receiving cash assistance from the International Committee of the Red Cross. This is the second round of cash that the ICRC is distributing to the people here. As you can see behind me, these are people who were displaced from neighboring towns to Fatsi when the conflict was still active, and at the moment they have still not been able to go back to their communities of origin. Some of them I talked to earlier have told me that they used the cash that was given to them before to buy food, pay for their medical treatment, and also to pay rent.